Hi guys, so Lord Frost took a question during his time with the Border and Protocol Delivery Group from a Tory MP called Richard Drax. Now, Frost responded to the idea that the UK could possibly sign bilateral agreements with individual member states. Unfortunately, Mr. Drax either doesn't understand how the European Commission works, or he's pretending not to understand. Anyway, let's hear the question and the response from Lord Frost.
And the bilateral agreements I asked you about, any movement on those with individual EU states? How are you getting on with them?
In any particular field, do you mean?
In any particular field, yes. Obviously, you're exploring bilateral agreements, presumably with separate EU countries. Are you having any success in those?
So there are some areas where we're looking at bilateral agreements where areas are in EU competence. I mean, for example, one area we'd like to do bilateral agreements in is returns agreements on asylum seekers, and that discussion is just beginning. The problem we face in that and some other areas is that although some member states probably do want to do bilateral agreements, that's not necessarily how the Commission sees it. And if it's, even though it's still in member state competence, the Commission has ways of influencing that. So we're just picking it up, and I would say there's some way to go in that, yeah.
Oh dear, yes, that was actually part of my question, whether individual EU states were able to do bilateral agreements. I think you're hinting that perhaps they cannot, with Big Brother sitting on their shoulder. That's a shame, but hopefully in the months and years ahead, that will disappear, and under your leadership, I'm sure it will, Lord Frost.
I hope they will see that there's an interest in sort of constructive and collaborative relationships with us, and I would expect that to happen.
What? Okay. First, EU member states benefit when they have quote-unquote Big Brother on their shoulder. The EU wields a huge amount of clout on the world stage, much more than individual member states. So when it comes to dealing with issues like climate change or trade or anything else, member states understand it is generally in their interest to have the European Commission in the driving seat. Secondly, now, Lord Frost has been the UK chief negotiator. He has been the unelected Brexit Minister, and he still doesn't understand that EU member states have a common trade policy. There's no internal border controls when it comes to goods moving within the EU. It's the European Commission that deals with international trade negotiations, not member states. They don't do the negotiating. The Commission does it on their behalf. Now, don't get me wrong here. Countries in the EU can sign trade deals with countries around the world, but it must not come into conflict with the higher agreement made at the EU level. We've seen countries like France some time ago sign a trade deal with India, but it cannot interfere with agreements the EU currently has with India. If that was to change, it'd be driven by the EU, not by David Frost. The idea that Lord Frost could somehow change the European Commission's remit is frankly insane. It isn't up to him. Finally, it isn't so much a question of does the EU understand that the UK has left the European Union. It's more an issue of whether Brexiteers like this guy Richard Drax, who asked the original question, actually understand how things really work. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?